Today we're going to show you how we took this pecan slab and turned it into a beautiful table. My name is Robert. I'm the owner of Dailey Woodworks in Bryan, Texas, where I build great furniture and I use my YouTube channel to teach you how to build great furniture. So I picked up this slab from Pecan Timber Company in College Station, where they have an amazing selection of live edge slabs from pecan, which is what this slab is, to mesquite, to walnut, to, I'm blanking on the other wood that they get, monkey pod. And my customer wanted a pecan slab, so I was able to send them several pictures of different slabs that they had in stock. She picked this one, and what I'm doing right now is I'm wetting the surface, and you can see where I had a leak come through, and that's a good way to find any leaks or cracks that go all the way through. But I'm wetting the surface with some mineral spirits that will simulate what it will look like with finish on it, and I'm letting her choose the side that she wants as the show side for her furniture. And several days later, I'm actually pulling the slab back out and getting started on this project. The next thing I have to do is flatten the slab. This is a slab flattening jig that I bought several years ago, but I've rarely had the opportunity to use. The first time I really needed a sled, turns out I didn't buy this one wide enough. I learned later I can buy different rails to make it any width I want. But I had to make a homemade one. And this is the first time I've really had the opportunity to use my clean cut woodworking slab flattening jig, and it is absolutely amazing. You can see here I'm just hogging away at that slab. The reason I'm taking some off is there was a crack kind of in the front where some sapwood had separated from the hardwood, so I ended up taking altogether about a half an inch off the show face of this slab just to really clean it up. And I totally should have done this outside because there was so much dust. Yes, I was wearing a respirator, but so much dust. The cool thing with this sled is you can see how I'm sliding my rails down. Because my workbench is flat and those rails are linear rails, I can slide it down so I get any length I need as long as I have a flat workbench. And the only limitation is really the width, but you can go up to, I think, 60 inches wide on the clean cut woodworking jig. So this jig is actually one of the first times I've had a quote-unquote sponsor. Yes, I bought this sled with my own money, but I like supporting small American owned, operated, and made businesses and products. And Brent, the owner of Clean Cut Woodworking, is that guy. So Clean Cut Woodworking is owned by Brett Jarvis, who started making his own router sled because he couldn't find what he wanted. And you can see he's got tons of different options, different sizes you can do. I custom ordered mine. He has accessories, all these kind of things. So I worked out a deal with him where if you use my last name as a promo code, Dailey, spelled with an EY, so if you spell it wrong you won't get your 5% off, you can get 5% off your router sled. And it is well worth the investment, especially if you're like me and I'm in a small limited shop, but I have to do big shop things. Now, I love Cam over at Blacktail Studio and really love his videos, and if you've watched his stuff, he always takes his wood over to this big industrial shop to have it flattened. Yes, he pays to do that. Yes, it gets awesome results, but using the clean cut woodworking sled, it takes way less time than it would to load it up, take it back to Pecan Sawmill, then pay them, a couple $100s to professionally flatten it for me. So I taped off the back to fill any potential voids, and now I'm mixing up some epoxy, and I'm going to have links to everything I use in the description below. And I'm kind of using my heat gun to pop some of the bubbles, let it sit, let the bubbles come to the surface, pop those before I pour it in. And then I just kind of go crazy. I just pour in epoxy, mix a little bit more up. I am far from an expert with epoxy. What I found with the West systems that I've used, and I've used some of the super clear deep pour, that's probably the better stuff to use, but it's a lot more watery, and this is more of a gel, so it kind of takes longer to soak in. But if you get like a little leak somewhere, you can kind of like get in there and plug it up before it just pours out like water all over the floor. And so I do this in several layers of just pour it in, let it settle, mix another batch up, pour it in, let it settle, and I'll do this over the course of a day or two, because you know this particular epoxy takes about 4 hours to set up, and so after about 3 hours, where it's still a little bit tacky, is when you want to go back and add your next layer so they still kind of meld together. And overall, it's a very simple process to get these slabs prepped to be tables. But it still is, you know, just a very time-consuming process. And now I've had the wisdom to move outside because, oh my gosh, there was dust everywhere. They now have a dust collection attachment boot that you can get. And what I did is, after I got all my epoxy filled, I'm just, again, taking off, I think I took off about a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch this time. And that's just the accuracy you can get with this guy, even with sliding these rails down in just a second that you're about to see me do. Because my workbench is flat, it still keeps it flat, and then it's just very easy to move that down, sand it, and then go from there. And so, great tool, it's super smooth, and I highly recommend it. It's also a very expensive tool, but well-made tools are well worth the investment. And so I do have a link, again, in the description, and I'll do it at the card at the end, where I made my own router sled, which, either way, you should have a router sled. They're super useful. Once we get it, the final flattening, you can see my pencil lines are all over this, and I'm just setting up my Festool Rotex, and I'm going to hit it with 80 grit, 120 grit, and then 180 grit before I put my finish on. And it's just a bunch of sanding. After I do all my sanding, I normally will go back with Star Bond adhesives and fill in any of those little pinholes that open up in the epoxy, or any little air bubbles that were in the epoxy. And then once all that's done, I'll just kind of continue progressing through my grits, and now it's time to finish. We go ahead and finish both sides. I'm using a pre-catalyzed lacquer finish. I really like it. This is the flat, but it's, in my opinion, kind of shiny for flat, but I like the sheen of it. It's very protective, very durable, and I do 2 coats on the back, and then I do 3 top coats. And you can see now I'm skipping that, sanding between all the coats, and I sand up to 320 with my Mercaderos between coats, and that just gives a super, super slick finish. And there's not much to say about spraying. You just kind of have to figure it out. I have a Titan cap spray, HVLP sprayer. I built out my spray booth. I've got videos over kind of how I set up my spray booth. It's just a matter of get a good finish where it's laying down nice and even, sand between your coats, remove every little speck of dust you can. You can see I'm blowing and wiping and all these things to get that clean before I lay down my next coat. And that's really all there is to it. I like this lacquer because it's dry in about 30 to 45 minutes. I can come back and sand it and do my next coat. And once it sets up, it's that pre-catalyzed, and after a few days that really hardens up and it's nearly indestructible. So you tell me, what's your favorite finish to use? I've tried, not all of them, but I've tried a lot of them. And I'm of the opinion of find one you like and kind of stick with it. I've been experimenting with Rubio Monocoat, and I like it, but I like a little bit more sheen personally. And I really like this lacquer for all the reasons I've said. I know some people like wipe on, things like that. But this is my preferred finish that I like to use. You can see I'm in a cloud of lacquer right now, but the results speak for themselves. So, again, to recap, if you want to see how I make different styles of tables, you can click the link to see that chevron table I just made. You can click the link to go to Clean Cut Woodworking's website and get 5% off your router sled with the promo code DAILY. Or you can, I don't know, because I don't know what else to tell you to do. But subscribe, like the video, and we'll see you next time.